Well, the macro environment in Australia is just remarkable. We have relatively low COVID cases, approximately just over 200 if you aggregate it on a state-by-state basis. And what's really important is that within that approximately 200 plus number, there's only 2 cases under investigation for unknown source. So we know where the sources have come from, and that's really important for contact tracing and the effectiveness of managing the virus. The other thing that's remarkable is just how low those numbers are, is how confident Australia is feeling on an economic basis. So if we look at consumer confidence, that's up in the latest numbers, and it's actually at a record 10-year levels. So the highest reading in over a decade. And then if you factor in why is that happening? Well, we've had personal tax cuts in the latest budget, record low interest rates, and first home buyer stimulus, which has a great economic multiplier. And then if you add to that consumer confidence, we have business confidence also at very high levels. In fact, they're at the highest levels since April 2018 in the last 2 years plus. So again, strong consumer, strong business confidence gives us a lot of confidence about the economic outlook for Australia, particularly with our low COVID levels. And if we sort of reflect on that, if I reflect on that from a personal level, what that has meant is that after some harsh lockdowns to get on top of our COVID numbers, because we are an island, we can manage our borders effectively, we can manage our COVID numbers. And so my everyday life, we're not back in the office yet, but we've got back to things that we're doing on an everyday basis that we'd normally be doing. My children are playing school sport again. We have the Australian Open tennis tournament, the tennis championships coming up in February. That's been delayed a few weeks, but the tournament's going ahead as planned, and we will have people in attendance, albeit on reduced basis. So in the context of the global environment, Australia is truly doing a remarkable job. Well, if we look at the AREIT investment environment, there's no doubt that the REITs, the AREITs, have been at the epicenter of social distancing and some of the harsh lockdowns that Australia implemented to manage the COVID virus. But what that has meant is that the AREITs have produced a negative return of negative 4% in Australian dollar terms, the AREIT 300 index, over the calendar year 2020. And that's in contrast to the ASX 300, the broader equity index, which was up 1.7% for the same period, 2020. And that reflects the skew to shopping centres in the AREIT 300 index, the artificial nature of lockdowns, where some of those stores were actually forced to close by the government. But what's been remarkable is how quickly Australians have returned to their everyday lives as those restrictions have eased. And so particularly as vaccine news has emerged in the last 6 months, in the second half of the year, the AREITs, after underperforming equity markets, have been very strong performers. In fact, for the 6 months to December, they're up 21.6% in Australian dollar terms. And that compares to the broader equity index, the ASX 300, which was up 13.7% for that 6 months in Australian dollars. So you can see with Australians returning to their everyday lives, news of vaccine, the business confidence and consumer confidence that I spoke about earlier, we're very optimistic about the AREIT performance from these levels, particularly where you think about the Australian 5-year government bond is at relatively low levels, and AREITs get priced with reference to that risk-free rate. So that's looking very attractive on a global basis. The yields on offer, the COVID case numbers are very low in Australia, and the economic outlook that supports A-REIT's backdrop looks very strong. If we turn to the fundamentals on the A-REIT index, again, we're seeing improved cash collection across the A-REIT index after the lockdowns. The willingness for Australians to return to their everyday lives is evidenced by the performance of Scentre Group, which owns all the Westfields in Australia. And just to refresh you, 65% of the population in Australia lives within a 30-minute drive of a Westfield shopping centre. So they have a very dominant position and capture a large percentage of the market. And if we look at their September quarter update, their latest releases, foot traffic, people's attendance at shopping centres is back at 90% of pre-COVID levels. And if we look at tenant sales in, for example, Queensland, which has had virtually no cases of COVID, their tenant sales for the September quarter versus the previous September quarter from 2019, their tenant sales for specialties, for small stores, were actually up 4.9%. And so we think that high foot traffic rate, or people attending shopping centres, and then those tenant sales in Queensland as an example of what the world looks like in a post-COVID vaccine world. We're very optimistic about the positioning of the portfolio for the A-REITs in general and for the broader Australian outlook. So thank you very much.